Good morning, y'all. Oh, happy Tuesday. I am taking a break from the incessant job hunting to do a little bit of meal prep today. I have some time. We are probably looking at when I go back to work, me having to commute a little bit, which I've been a remote employee for 3.5 years now, so it's definitely gonna be a big change. But that said, I really need to start honing in on my meal prep abilities because obviously when you're commuting, you're not home as much. Typically it's like if we're gonna have a dinner, I have time around lunchtime to like get things ready and prep it, and then it's ready for dinner. And when you're commuting, things are just more crazy. So I am doing this partly in anticipation of that, just partly because I've had some things that I've wanted to make. For the most part, I had most of these ingredients in my pantry. And I'm just kind of using up bits and bobs of what I've got for this first thing, which is I'm going to be making granola. I'm going to make two kinds. I want to make a coconut almond, and then I want to make one that's chocolate, like with some cocoa powder. I also, because I, bless the Lord, like I got severance through for a month or two from my job, and so that is laying me off. So I know that I have a paycheck. I am fairly confident, trusting in the Lord, that I will find a job before that severance period is done. However, I am trying to be very intentional with finances, with grocery shopping, things like that. So I am not going out and buying a ton of specific ingredients. It's more like we have a ton of pork still in the freezer, so I'm doing my best to use that up, use what we got. I found some chicken, like already cooked chicken breasts in the freezer the other day, and I was like, oh my gosh, because we really, really love chicken. We don't eat a ton of pork. We just had it because we butchered the pigs. So that was a treat. We got that. I made from scratch chicken tacos last night, which was fantastic. So for this granola, I'm going to do the coconut almond first. And I do not measure ingredients when I make granola. I've never made a granola that I was like, that was awful, and I didn't want to eat it. I feel like granola is pretty forgiving. It's good as a breakfast food. I like eggs for breakfast, so I tend to actually use granola as like my snack, or like on a protein yogurt, something like that. Or at night when I get like a little sweet craving, it's a nice thing because it's also very full of fiber. Oats are not a protein food. I don't count them as that. When you kind of look at the majority macro in a food, like what is it? Like, yes, oats contain protein, but they are not a protein source. They are a carb. But they're very high in fiber and cholesterol lowering fiber. And so they're good for you. So I did buy a thing of old-fashioned oats. I have a little bit of these left, so I'm going to use those up first. I'm going to save this. That is a great container for something. I did buy coconut because I knew the last time I made granola, I used up all of the coconut that we had. The other thing I'm doing very differently this time, I did not buy honey, and we do not have honey. But we do have a plethora of raw sugar. And so this is going to be a little bit of an experiment today because I'm using raw sugar instead of using honey. Now, again, you could debate that using sugar in granola makes it really, really unhealthy. Honey is also sugar. Like, your body processes sugars the same. Actually, it does kind of the same thing in your brain when you do sugar substitutes. So stevia, monk fruit, it still sends kind of that same signal to your brain So even though technically you're, like stevia is from a plant, from a leaf, which I actually have grown it before, and I find the younger leaves more palatable. Like they're sweeter, they have less aftertaste. The older, larger leaves are, again, they have more of an aftertaste to them. I don't prefer it so much, but it triggers all the same things in your brain. So sugar is sugar is sugar. Honey contains vitamins, which, and, nutritive things in it. But if you're talking about it from the standpoint of, like choosing a sweetener, again, like raw sugar, honey, it's all the same. So anyway, so we're going to do a few cups of oats. Actually, I'm going to get a bigger bowl. Knowing myself, if I don't get a bigger bowl, I will end up making a mess. I don't want to do that. That's the right size bowl. All right. Put that in there. Ooh, it's a little wet on the bottom. Okay, so we've got probably, I'm going to guess 4 or 5 cups of oats in here. I'm going to set that aside for a second. Actually, put a little bit more in there. Now, you need some kind of oil. I have a little bit of avocado oil left, so I'm going to use this as my oil. And again, I don't measure. I just kind of do it until it's coated. Sorry, I moved that out of camera view. I'm gonna put that back in there so you guys can see. So this should be pretty coated. And you need the oil to help your granola get crispy. Because if you don't use oil, you will end up with dry, not crispy granola. And I like it crunchy. That's like one of the great joys of granola is the crunch. All right, so all of these have just a good light coating of oil on them. That's what you want. You don't want it like saturated. That's not it's not gold. Now, I have before used butter. Coconut oil actually is my favorite thing to use for granola. Again, especially if you're putting coconut in it, it just kind of gives it like a nice extra coconutty flavor. We're gonna do some cinnamon. I love cinnamon. I'm now out of cinnamon. I have cinnamon sticks, which I guess I could use a planer and grate those in. All right, now I'm gonna set that aside. I had some almonds. So I'm going to just get a couple handfuls and chop these up. You could, I guess, also use a food processor to help you with this. You can also buy pre-sliced almonds. Oh, while I'm doing this, I'm going to preheat my oven to 350. So sometimes when I make granola, I will set the oven to 325. And you end up cooking it a lot longer and flipping it less if you do 325. So 350, it's a shorter cooking time. You have to flip it more often and you have to really keep an eye on it because it is, because it does have sugar in it, it will burn if you don't keep an eye on it. And I don't know if y'all have ever made or tasted burnt granola, but it's not good. It's pretty gross. And my goal is not like perfectly uniform anything. It's just to get most of these so you're not having bites of whole almonds when you're biting into granola. Again, I like making this for snack. If you ever like needed a hostess gift, a housewarming gift, you know, granola is super easy to make. You can do all sorts of variations on it. You could do pumpkin. You could do, like I said, you know, like chocolate peanut butter, vanilla almond, you know, you could do just all sorts of things with it. All right, these are pretty good. I lost a couple to the floor. It's okay. These are pretty, it's a rough chop. So we're gonna throw those in there. Okay, I'm gonna put in some coconut. Now keep in mind, this is sweetened coconut. And I'm gonna be mindful of that when I am adding sugar. And you will taste it to make sure. But I like a lot of coconut. Measure with your heart. Okay. And I bought in bulk chia and flax seeds from Azure Standard. And again, it's just add more fiber, a little bit of texture. So I'm gonna put in about a handful of flax seeds, about a handful of chia. Mix that. My hands are clean. Don't worry, don't freak out. Don't be rude. Until it looks very well mixed and incorporated. So if you're doing this with honey, which you can, I would encourage you, if you have honey, to do it with honey. But if you're doing this with honey, I would recommend probably using a spatula to turn it, otherwise your hands will get incredibly sticky. Okay, I'm gonna put in just a little bit of vanilla. There. I am gonna add just a little bit of oil too, because adding the other ingredients kind of made it a little bit more dry. There you go, so it's probably a couple tablespoons, less than a quarter cup. Okay. Now, I smell the cinnamon and the vanilla. Can't smell very much, I'm getting over a cold, but it smells really good. All right. Okay, I'm gonna grab my third cup. So again, we've got four or five cups of oats, probably a third to a half a cup of chia seeds, third to a half a cup of flax seeds, a couple cups of coconut. So that's 2/3 cup of sugar. I'm gonna just mix this around. I think that's probably plenty, especially with the sweetened coconut in there. And hopefully it's not too much. So at this point, I would taste it. Yeah. Yeah, we're good. But that is so good. Like the cinnamon and the vanilla, you had like little things like that, and it makes such a massive difference. So I'm gonna spread this on my baking sheet. I'm gonna try to get it out to as much of a single layer as I can. And this is pretty thick on the pan, if you guys can see. So when I flip it, I'm gonna take it out of the oven, probably put it on the cutting board, flip it, put all the extra bits back because I will drop some off. All right, so this is gonna go in the oven. I'm all set. I'm gonna set a timer for 10 minutes, and every 10 minutes I'm gonna flip it. Okay. All right. All right, so I'm gonna wipe out the bowl. I'm not gonna worry too much with this. Like, it's basically a lot of the same ingredients. So again, we're not worrying. 2 cups of oats. Now, I am gonna use maple syrup as my sweetener in this one because I do have it. And I will still need oil to make it crispy. Put in. Again, I'm not measuring the cocoa powder. I'm just putting it in with this because I don't want to stick my hand in there. Again, a little bit of vanilla. Ooh, oh gosh. All right, so that last batch, which I could put this in when I flip it. I forgot salt. And I find whenever you are making anything sweet, salt is like really imperative because it actually helps balance out all of the sugar in something. So I would highly recommend that. Again, we're gonna do a handful of chia seeds. Handful of flax seeds. A little more flax seed. I think I do want almonds in this one too. Just again, like I've got some, so I might as well. Okay. Chunks of almond in there. Might do a little bit more. Put that in there. Okay, so there's no sweetened coconut in this one, and I haven't put any oil in it yet. I'm gonna mix in the cocoa powder. Get that as incorporated as I can. We're gonna probably use up the rest of this avocado oil, yes. hoping that is enough. Because again, you can use butter, which I have done before. It is not my favorite. And then I also feel obligated to store it in the refrigerator and not like once it's completely cooled and dry, put it in mason jars like I usually would. So I'm gonna hope that that's enough, especially with the liquid of the maple syrup. Put this in there. I'm not gonna stick my hands in there. Don't you guys think maple chocolate, again, just like a little pinch of vanilla, sounds really good? I think that sounds really good. It's starting to come together, starting to get wet and, you know, clump here and there. Which the clumps, honestly, so again, like when you're using sugar versus using a honey or a syrup or something like that, it's not going to clump. And those, you know, again, if you like the kind of crunchy clusters, it makes it really good. And so it's not gonna do that. All right, I'm gonna taste it. That's good. That's appropriately sweet. It's not like insane overpowering. It's got that nice chocolatey taste to it. And again, when you're eating this with like milk, you could add a little more syrup. You could sprinkle it with sugar if you like it super, super sweet. So that's nice. Okay, I am going to, I think I had my pan ready over there, but because I'm using maple syrup, I actually think it would be better for me to use a baking dish. So I'm just gonna throw this in there. I will also say, spread that among two. When you are using baking dishes with edges on them, it's much easier to flip it than if you don't. And if you're just using like a cookie sheet. Okay. That is good. All right. I'm gonna get these put in the oven. I'm going to make a white bean salad next. So I'm gonna throw these in the oven. I'll get set up for that. And then when these come out of the oven, we'll taste them again. All right. So this next recipe comes from a blog called Munching with Mariah. I tweak it a little bit, don't follow directions exactly, mostly because I never do. Also because I don't have certain ingredients like sumac and za'atar. Sumac is very hard to get around us. I am in a rural area in Central Virginia. You know, most of our grocery stores are Food Lion that are close by, and they carry very, how do I put this nicely? Very standard American diet, fare, spices, things like that. They don't tend to be very bulky on like the international foods. I can go to Kroger in Lynchburg, which is not too far from us, and they have more of like a wider selection. But again, I didn't want to have to make a special trip. So I just kind of add bits and bobs to this, but the recipe is great. And I would encourage y'all, it's Munching with Mariah. It's Mariah spelled Mariyah. And so go to her blog, follow that recipe, like it, it's fantastic. I have some, it called for jarred butter beans. Butter beans are just lima beans that have been ripened on the plant and dried. And so they're not green and soft. They're white, and they are dried, cooked like a bean, like you would a pinto or a black bean. And I did these, I cooked these, I got dry ones, cooked them in my pressure cooker, in my Instant Pot, on the bean setting, which I think is like 14 or 15 minutes maybe. Drained them, rinsed them really well. So we're just gonna throw those in here. And they are kind of the main staple of this recipe, so I wouldn't leave them out. And again, I've definitely got way more than a can's worth in here. So I know, you know, like when I'm seasoning things, I adjust to flavor. And so, you know, you can do the same. I have chickpeas also that I froze and saved from the last time I made this recipe. And they're mostly thawed out. They add kind of a nice, like, just like a different flavor to the white beans. The white beans don't have a lot of flavor in and of themselves. So I'm gonna throw that in there. It calls for 1 medium red onion. So I have gone ahead and sliced. I had used a little bit of red onion for dinner last night, so I just kind of sliced what I had left. Oh, and I need to grab some garlic cloves. I did not do that yet. I like things very garlicky. I think this recipe is pretty garlicky. Like, I think for the can of beans, it does call for like 3 cloves of garlic. So I'm gonna use 3 cloves of garlic. And I've got some nice big ones. I love garlic. To me, there is no such thing as too much, and it's really good for you, so I don't see the harm in just using all that we can. Grab that timer. Okay, quick intersection note on the granola. I turned the oven down to 325 because I found at 350 the sweetened coconut was burning. And again, I didn't want that to happen. So I turned it down, and instead of checking it at 10-minute intervals like I usually would, I put it to 8. And so now, gone ahead and took it out. I flipped it 3 or 4 times, so after you kind of do that, you know, and most of it's gotten toasted and everything is toasty and incorporated. That's typically when I take it out. So it was in there for about 35 minutes. All right. You could slice your garlic if you wanted to. Again, I like it really like well incorporated and even. So for me, I just prefer smashing it. Ooh! I just shot garlic juice on myself. That is very juicy garlic. Ooh, and it burns. It's hot. All right, don't waste the garlic that is in your crusher. Take that out, chop it up, use it. All right, good stuff. Now, we're gonna do salt. Obviously, I do probably a little bit more than you'd think that you would need because the beans do tend to soak it up. Lemon juice. You could use fresh lemon juice. I think the recipe calls for lemon juice and lemon zest. I'm not gonna go through all that trouble this morning, so we're just doing that. I'm gonna do a little bit of black pepper. All right, za'atar. So za'atar is a Mediterranean, Middle Eastern spice that uses thyme, sesame seeds, sumac, and there are some other things in there. Because I don't have that, I'm gonna just improvise. So I'm gonna use thyme. Do a dried thyme. I'm gonna use a little bit of smoked paprika. I don't have the sumac, and sumac has a little bit more of like a punchy, citrusy kind of flavor to it, but it's fine. I do have white sesame seeds. We're gonna use that. And then we will use a little bit of coriander as well. Not too much. There's like that much for all of those beans. A bit of turmeric maybe. And the recipe calls for a bit of ground cumin. Put that in there. All right. Do not forget olive oil, sort of balance out some of that citrus. That is a good, healthy fat for you. Okay. And then the last, well, there's two more ingredients. And these last two are probably, to me, what are the most important. We have artichoke hearts, which I love, love, love artichokes. Artichoke and spinach dip, crab and artichoke dip, artichokes on a salad. I'll just eat these any way they come because I love them so much. And then the recipe calls for green olives. It does not specify what kind of olives, but I will tell you, Castelvetrano olives are the best. You could use black Kalamata, like green cocktail olives, whatever you want. But I will say, Castelvetrano olives they're not as pungent. They are not bitter. They don't have like a bitter finish to them like green olives or Kalamata olives sometimes do. They're a really nice, smooth, like pleasant to munch on olive. So I prefer them to other olives. And they never last very long in my house. So my daughter doesn't like green olives of any kind, or Kalamata olives, but she does love black olives, like loves black olives. And you know, they are like another salty element So if you're sensitive to salt, I would say maybe cut back on the salt in this salad. I'm gonna just chop each one of these in half, add them in. But I think, I don't know, when I first read this recipe, you know, I saw it had the olives and the artichoke hearts. I liked that it had like the beans and the chickpeas in it because my thought was awesome. Like those things are very high in fiber and a good protein source. So this will make like a great snack. You know, fairly low in fat. Olives, olive oil, they do have fats in them. Even beans have fats in them, but they're healthy fats. And so, you know, but I was like, I'm not sure how all of this stuff is gonna go together. And let me tell you, the first bite that I took of the salad, I was forever hooked because it is so healthy. And I also really love lemon. Like lemon anything to me is just the best. So again, like for 1 can of chickpeas, 1 can of butter beans, the recipe calls for 7 to 8 artichoke hearts. So I will probably do more. But I think because the beans do tend to be a bit bland, like, and then everything else, like the punchiness of the flavor with the artichokes and the lemon and the, you know, olives. I mean, this recipe was just one of those things that I was like, okay, I have to have this in my house all the time. And dried beans are fairly inexpensive. Olives and artichokes are not inexpensive. But you could make those less so expensive by buying store brand. You know, but literally, like if I buy a dried bag of garbanzo beans and a dried bag of butter beans and make that myself, you know, again, I had like leftovers. So I spent no money on the garbanzo beans for this time. Okay, here we go. This beautiful, gorgeous salad. And now for my favorite part, the mixing. Oh gosh, and of course there's the timer. Oh my goodness. Look at that, y'all. Okay, here we go. All right. Everything is nice and toasty. Again, we want to get all the salt, all of the lemon incorporated. Okay. Let's try it. Oh my God. Wow. I think last time I made this, I used less cumin and I didn't add the paprika. And let me tell you something, I'm so glad that I did that this time because that is so good. So good. Yay me. Alright. So, we've gotten 2 pretty good meal prep things done this morning. Salad's done for snack. Granola. It will sit here and cool. Then once it cools, I will put it into a jar or a couple jars. And then that will go in the pantry. I am making bread later today once my starter activates. And then we are doing split pea soup for dinner. I do not have ham, but I do have ground pork. So I'm going to do like a salty Italian sausage type deal, and we'll top that with that. But that's our meal prep for this morning. Super quick, not even 9 o'clock yet. And, we've got a couple easy grab things for this week. I'm going to get my breakfast made and sit down and get some work done. But I hope you all try these recipes, try making granola, just throw random stuff together that you think would be good. But the main thing with making granola is that you keep an eye on it in the oven because it will burn. So yeah, thanks guys. We'll catch you on the next one. Bye.